I played a bunch of games lately with the black pieces. All these games that I will show you, I was black, and they were all blitz games. My opponents were all human opponents. Because I won't say that because I have posted quite a few games now that I've played against computer engines. These games weren't any particularly good or anything. My opponents were so and so. Some players were better than others, but I think it's fun anyway. And also I haven't analyzed any of these games, so I have no idea if there were mistakes or anything. I just play the games over the board. It's not like you're running an engine next to you anyway when you're playing. So I don't care about what I could have done or what my opponent could have done. I mean, sure, I can mention it over the board, but this is real life chess. So okay. So after e4 I played e6. I was just a normal French. I was expecting something like d4, d5, now c3 or whatever. But he played c3. I don't think I've seen this very often. No, it does remind a little bit of the c3 Sicilian, perhaps. But it's not a Sicilian, obviously. So I play knight f6. He played d3, d5, e5, knight e7, and I was expecting d4 here, so kind of taking another route to the French defense. But he played knight f3, c5, bishop e2, knight c6, bishop f4, queen b6, putting more pressure on the b2 pawn as well as a stronger grip on the d4 square. So he played queen c1. Now, since he didn't play d4 himself, I decided to play d4, c4, queen c7, and now the pawn on e5 is just lost. Now he couldn't do anything about that, so he just cancelled, and I took the pawn, knight a3. His idea is to go to b5, I suppose. So I played a6, knight e2. The reason with knight d2 is that he wants to go to e4, so I played bishop d6. Might look silly because he can play knight to e4 anyway, which he did, but I play knight f3 check, an in-between move, and when he takes my knight, okay. So when he took my knight, I took back, and my idea was that after bishop takes f4, his queen is under attack, and he has to move his queen, which he did, of course, and then I took the pawn with check, so he moved his king, and now bishop e5, g3. And here I started looking at, a potential sacrifice on the g3 square, for example, after f5. And then perhaps, I don't know, he would probably go to d2 or something like that. I'm not so sure if g5 is such a good move. Well, maybe it is, I don't know, probably not. And then sacrifice my bishop on this pawn. Maybe there's something there, or maybe not, I don't know. So I played h5. Okay, king g2. Now it looks tempting to play h4 here, but the problem is that after h4 he can just go play rook to h1, and I can't take the pawn because my own rook is hanging on h8. So I played knight to f6. Maybe there was something better than that, I don't know. But I played knight f6, rook h1, knight takes, bishop takes, and here I played g6, and now my rook is protected by my bishop on e5. But of course h4 doesn't make much sense anyway, because if I play h4 you can just take it immediately with the rook or the pawn. Probably with the rook. But I didn't do that. So knight c2, bishop d7, b3, bishop c6, queen f3, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop f6, queen e2, queen c6, check, f3. Castles long, knight to e1. So his moves don't make very much sense. But the problem is that his knight is stopped almost everywhere. I mean, going to a3 doesn't make any sense because the only square he could have gone to was b5, but he can't go to b5 because I have a pawn on a6. So this knight is looking like a, I don't know, kangaroo or something. He's just jumping around, not really accomplishing anything. He can't even go to g2 because his king is there. So I played queen d6, queen f2. Yeah, his moves are kind of random anyway. I played g5. My idea is to perhaps open things up on his against his king here, put my other rook on g8 or something. So he's just, like I said, just jumping back and forth with his knight. So knight c2, bishop g7, rook a to e1. I play bishop f6 again. The reason I play the bishop f6 again, let's see, just to go back a couple of moves here. Yeah, the reason I went bishop f6 was I was looking at something like h4, and then if it takes, I can just take back, and the pawn is protected by my bishop. But if I hadn't played that, he could have just won a pawn. But also after h4, maybe he can even play g4. I don't know. But then after h4, g4, perhaps if he ever moves his queen, my own queen can come to g3, perhaps. Who knows? When he played rook e2, I played h4 anyway. So, and here he played queen e1. I took the pawn. He played rook e4. I played rook h2 check. King g1. Rook takes. We check. King takes h1. Rook h8 check. King g1. g2. And this is just lost. I suppose the game was lost anyway. Long time ago, but anyway, so let's just take a look at this. Rook g4, queen check, king f2, and now just pawn promotes to a queen, and that's checkmate. He can't go anywhere. Okay, another fantastic game, but I suppose it had some value anyway. So let's take another look. Okay, let's see. Yeah, again, very strange opening. I don't really have anything to say about these moves, except that I played reasonably good moves. d4 stops knight c3, knight bd2, so now he wants to go to c4, I suppose. I play bishop e6, so I expected knight to g5 here. And he didn't do that, so I played h6, g4, b5. And here I also expected g5. He played b3, knight h7. The reason was that at some point he was probably going to play g5 anyway. Knight f1, his idea is to go to g3 and either h5 or f5. I played c4. Takes, g5. Not really accomplishing anything except losing a pawn, so I just took the pawn. Perhaps it would have been better to take with the knight, but I took with the pawn. b4, rook b8. My idea is to play a5. Now notice that if I play a5 here, then after b5 my knight has to move somewhere, so it's easy to play rook b8 first, I suppose. Knight d2, a5. Pawn takes, queen takes, knight f1, and I play the bishop e7. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll play bishop e7 because my pawn was hanging on g5. And also I want to give anything back. Knight g3, so g6 stops this knight from going to either h5 or f5 forever. Bishop d2, c3. Bishop takes g5, and this is obviously a silly blunder. He just loses piece for nothing. So knight takes, bishop takes. So he's now a piece for nothing. Well, yeah, this is just ridiculous. I suppose he was just messing around here. Okay, I'm not going to look any further on that game. So let's take another look at another game. Yeah, this is also an opening I have seen many times. For some reason people love this opening, and I always play d5, e takes, and I here play knight f6. One of the ideas, and I've also made a couple of videos about this, is to move e5. So if d5, I usually play h5, and just the game looks completely crazy. I mean, just to give an example here, e5, something like this. And my opponents usually don't really know what to do here, so they play knight f3, and here I play knight c6. Sometimes I say this, And he's a6, takes, and sometimes they cancel, other times they play d4, c3, knight c3. I think it's actually difficult for white to know what to do here. Let's say, for example, if he cancels, then I would probably play knight to h6. If not, probably... Well, yeah, I think that's the best, because of the knight over here. I always have the option to go to bishop d4, bishop f5. And if bishop f5, let's say, and you might think, okay, what happens if he plays this move? Well, that's fine, no problem. I can probably go up here, but I usually don't play that way. I mean, as you can see, it's not a problem to play bishop f5 here, but I think it's better to go with the knight to h6, and now if knight to h4, I can even play g6. Anyway, let's see. But I like black's game there. It looks kind of crazy, but it's interesting in a way. So d5, e takes d5, and this is something... the game doesn't become as interesting as it does after d5. Knight f6, knight f3. Sometimes white protects this pawn with c4. I don't think it's a very good move, actually. And here I always play e6. Sometimes my opponent plays knight c3, but I think for the most part they just take. And here pawn takes, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e2, bishop e7, and so on. I think this is good for black. I'm not saying that it's better for black, but you know, if you look at it from white's perspective, you'll see that this pawn is a little bit tender. It's kind of difficult to protect it otherwise, except for with a piece. So you either have to use your piece to protect it, or maybe at some point try to play d4. But that's the idea anyway. So okay, let's see here. Knight f3. So I took the pawn. Bishop c4, knight b6. I suppose this is still part of opening theory. Yes, it is. He didn't play bishop b5. Bishop b5 is actually opening theory, but he went play queen e2. And here I play knight takes c4. Why not? I mean, I get the bishop pair. So queen takes c4, e6 cancels. Bishop e7, c3, knight c6. d4 takes. Queen b6. Knight c3 cancels. I can just say what I was expecting here. After queen b6, knight c3, I suppose I was looking at this move. Okay. Castles rook b1, bishop f6, knight e5, queen takes d4. Okay, I mean knight e5 just loses pawn. Okay, so I'm up a pawn now, but it's not actually that easy at this point. I have no idea whether or not these moves were good or not, but okay. Knight c2. It's not. It looks dangerous, but in fact it's not dangerous, because when he moves his bishop somewhere, I can just go to... Yeah, I mean, for example, let's say his idea is to avoid, make my retreat with my knight impossible, or at least very difficult. I can always go to b4. But okay, if it goes here, I can go there. If it goes here, I can even go to d4. But he played bishop d2. I'll play b6. I have to develop my bishop somehow. So rook c1, knight b4, rook c7, knight d5, rook back to c1, bishop a6, rook e1, knight b4, bishop takes, rook e to d1, bishop e7. One has to keep an eye on this knight over here, because he can go to potentially to this square. I suppose I could have done that, or at least some of those moves. Okay, knight g3, rook a to c8, rook takes, rook d7. That looks... Yeah, I mean, he's kind of forgetting his own king over here, so I'll play rook c1 check, king f2. King f1, bishop takes, g2 check. And now to king g1, which is the only move, obviously, because he can't go here because of this bishop on b4, and he also can't go up to this square, rank because of my rook, so I have to go back to G1, and now after bishop c5 he resigned because, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a checkmate. The only move to avoid checkmate in one move is this move, and then I just take it as checkmate, so he resigned on that move. Okay, I think I'll make a part 2 because I think I'm running out of time, so see you then.